What's up, everybody? This is the Healing Kings podcast, and this is your host, Drew Koss. And today we're going to talk about every man having the Moses syndrome. Yes, I made this up. The Moses syndrome. We usually hear about imposter syndrome, but today we're going to deal with the Moses syndrome. Now, before we jump in, I do see that a lot of you guys hear and watch the podcast, and I'm telling you, I'm grateful for that because there's no podcast without you guys. What I would love for you guys to do, if any of these episodes have ever touched you, helped you, gave you insight, I would love for you to hit the subscribe button. What does that do for us? It allows us to grow, it allows us to reach more people, and it allows us in the future to pay some guests to come on here and give us more insight. So if you can, I would mean so much to me to hit the subscribe button. Rather than that, let's get ready to get in. So let's just go over who Moses is and what do we mean by the Moses syndrome. Moses is a man in the Bible. I'm not going to go deep into every aspect of his life, but I want to give you a little background so you understand how we get here, how men have it, and what do we do with this. At this time where we meet Moses in Exodus, he has already been raised by the Egyptians. If you know the story of Moses, there was a time where the king was killing all the firstborn sons. And as he was killing all the firstborn sons, a miracle happened with Moses. Moses' mom, she packaged him up, put him in, I think we would call it now a bushel. She puts him in a basket and she puts him in the water. And as he's in the water, he hasn't been eaten alive by any animals. He's surviving without food. It's a miracle that he's even surviving. And his name actually means drawn out of water, Moses. And he gets to Egypt. And what happens is Pharaoh's daughter sees him, takes him. She takes him in her home. And she's going to raise him as her son. At those times, the actual mother didn't do the raising. There was like something you would call today a nanny. And the nanny happened to be Moses' mom. So she raised him in Egypt. He didn't die. He didn't get killed. That's a big thing by itself, right? He's on earth for a purpose. There's a reason for him still being here. There's a work that he's going to be doing. So we meet him there, and he grows up in Egypt. He learns the language. He learns the culture, things like that. Eventually, he becomes an adult, and he realizes that he is enjoying Egypt, but he's seen the suffering of the people where he's at. One day, he ends up striking an Egyptian that was beating a Hebrew person, and the man ends up dying. Moses is high, he hides him, and then he runs away to the desert. Okay, so just with that that alone, we do know men are good for sometimes burying emotions or putting things behind us rather than facing them. That's not the lesson for today, but I have a lot of episodes about that. You can go check out any of them. I talk about it. So he hides him. He runs away to the desert. Before he runs away to the desert, the next day comes and he sees something happening again where an Egyptian is beating a Hebrew. Moses is a Hebrew or Israelite. And he yells at him, and the man's like, What are you gonna do? You gonna kill us like you did the Egyptian? Like, we know what you did." He runs off to the desert. All right, he goes about his life, and one day he's at what is called a burning bush. I like to believe the burning bush symbolizes a place where you actually come to yourself, come to your senses, or you are faced with a decision or invitation with God. So Moses sees the burning bush. God speaks to him out of the bush. He tells him to take his shoes off. Where he stands is holy ground. Moses does that. And now here's the part where we start to find out the syndrome that he has, the Moses syndrome. God tells him, I've heard the cries of my people. I've seen what they've gone through. and I'm concerned about their suffering. I'm concerned about their suffering. Now, all of a sudden, he has Moses' attention, and I'm going to send you to go get them out, to go get them. Now, all of this stuff starts to come up. You're gonna send me. If you read the story, he starts to go, you're gonna send me, like I can't even speak well. Moses had what was called in the Bible a stammering tongue, or what we would call somebody who stutters. He's like, you're gonna send me, like I can't even speak. Well, how you gonna do that? There's fear now that comes up, and the syndrome that we were talking about today is needing to have all the answers before you move. That's what I'm considering to be the Moses syndrome. I can't speak. How are you gonna send me? If you send me, who am I gonna say? Who am I gonna say that you are? And God tells him, tell them that I am sent you. Let's hard pause here. Whenever God tells you to do something, He's figured out all the details ahead of time. Let that set you free. Let that set you free. When God tells you to do something, He's already figured out every single detail by the time He tells you this. He's figured out every roadblock, every fence, every wall, every person, every stumbling block, every circumstance. He's figured it all out before He asks you to do it. When He tells you to do it, He still has it all figured out. He even knows how you're going to react and what you're going to say. He's not alarmed by Moses' response. He's more so saying, all right, this is how you feel, and I'm letting you know, Moses, that uh, I'm requiring you to do this, and you can make this harder by not yielding to what I'm asking you to do, or you can do it. So Moses is like, and I can understand Moses has this big task to go back to Egypt and to free these people. It's a lot of people to free them. I have to go back to where I ran away from. That's the syndrome. You need the details because sometimes you're scared to go back where you have to go back into. We're not saying that every place you left, you got to go back to. I'm not saying that. But at times, when God requires something of you or He says something to you to do, He might say, hey, those people, it's time to go get those people. Those are your people. This is your task. This is beautiful because it shows us like the power of purpose, and it shows us the power of why we're here on earth. You're here for a certain group of people. When I say that, I'm not meaning like those people right across the street. I'm not saying that. That could be that, but I'm not saying that. A certain type of people who God wants to use you, your story, your struggles, your gifts, your talents, those type of people you are called to. And you're called to them because they are suffering from something or suffering with something that you'll have the solution for. That's powerful. You are called to a people who are suffering with something that you have the solution for. You are, I wish I had a pen to write that down. You are called to a certain people who are suffering with something that you have the solution for. Goes a little further. Moses goes a little further. Well, who am I going to say sent me? Moses, tell him I sent you. Tell him I am sent you. Now he's like, but if I do that, then all of these excuses to know all the details start to come now. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. God is not scared of our inadequacies. He's not scared of our weaknesses. A verse in the Bible in Corinthians talks about For when I'm weak, then I'm strong, which basically says the area where I feel the most inadequate in, the area where I feel the most insecurities, the areas where I feel that my weaknesses show up is the area that God is going to use the most. One of my main areas is speaking. Believe it or not, I'm very, very shy to speak. I get really, really nervous, even doing podcasts. So I try to do them often because I know God flows through me when I do that. And the way to combat the Moses syndrome is to realize it's not about you, bro. It's about who God wants to talk to through you, who God wants to minister to through you, who God wants to give the solution to through you. It's through you. And if it's through you, you can take the pressure off your head of trying to have all of the answers. My God, how many times as men and women do we suffer worrying about all the things that have not happened yet, about all the details that have not happened yet, just to realize, you know, God, God already knows. He already knows what's going to happen. He already knows what needs to happen and more. So today, I want you to think, what are you running away from that God may be telling you to do? Or God may be impressing on your heart to do? What are you running away from? Is it the Moses syndrome? If it is, just realize it's not about you. It's God working through you. And I'm speaking that to myself as well. So, guys, before we get out of here, please make sure to subscribe. We want to touch more men, help more men heal. And by you subscribing, you help us do that. As always, guys, go be great.